Respectfully, Allison Pietz.
I need a motion to accept the letter of resignation from Allison Pietz.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Cindy. Okay.
How do you spell last name?
Piec.
Okay. So all those in favor? And opposed? 07. And then, where are we now?
Nominations?
Oh, great. And now we'll have a nomination. Just one second. Are we still not live streaming, or what's the story?
We're back up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so I would like to nominate Mark Illingworth for a .8 FTE math position at Hollis Brookline High School. He comes to us with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from University of Virginia and a master's in digital photography from Savannah College of Art. He also has many years with us at Hollis Brookline High School in the math department.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Master's plus 30, step 20. It's a prorated for .8 FTE and 89 days remaining, so $33,148.
Okay. So I need a motion to accept the nomination of Mark Illingworth at a prorated salary of $33,148 and master's, I don't think I need all that, with an effective date of?
January 30th. I will explain that he has been present since the start of the school year as a long-term sub, but now this is a nomination for an employee position.
So effective date of January 30th. I need that motion.
Second.
I hope John captured it. Thank you. That's Kate and Beth. Are there any questions on that?
Yeah. Does this now put him back into the mode of continuing contract?
So it's a .8 position for the remainder of the school year. So no, it's just,
It does not.
correct.
Does it reset in terms of aspects, in terms of what will need to happen if there is a opportunity next year? Or is there any kind of guarantees of employment if there's an opening?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor? 7-0. Have to sign it.
Okay, I would like to nominate Jessica Strasberg for the position of Special Ed English 1-year interim for the 22-23 school year at Hollis Brookline High School. She comes to us with a bachelor's in English and Education from Franklin Pierce. And we are recommending bachelor's step 3 at a salary of $27,663, and that's prorated for the 107 school days.
Could you repeat the amount?
$27,663.
Can you repeat her name?
Jessica Strasberg.
Okay, I need a motion to accept the nomination of Jessica Strasberg to the position of English teacher at Hollis Brookline High School with an effective date of,
So January 3rd.
okay, so,
So moved.
okay. Moved by Beth, second by Kate. Okay. Any questions?
Does this person, because are they certified so that it gets you around if there's a need for a second year, can this person continue to teach?
This person is certified.
Okay.
This position is for this year.
Yeah, I
And then
understand.
we would post and can be
But
eligible.
But the person is allowed to continue?
Yes.
Because they have that
By
certification?
the state, you mean, like
Yeah.
state certification?
Yes.
right.
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, 7-0. Did I count that right?
Yep.
Did everybody know? Okay. Okay.
Just to step back, is Mr. Illingworth at the high school or the middle school?
High school.
Okay.
Okay, so anything else, Gina?
That'll do it.
Okay. Today's the right date on that?
I don't know.
7/18, right? 1/18.
118. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Great, thank you for that. At this point, Mathematics Review Committee update. And this is Lance Flamino, right? He is one of our math teachers, and he has taken on this job. Yeah, and then we're moving to there.
Yeah, I know.
And then we're doing that. Okay. Ladies, if you're welcome to stay. You're welcome to stay. Go back to sleep.
See how you can stack them?
I know,
Oh,
it's,
okay.
Just watch your time to do that.
Right.
what's that?
I was just saying she needs to close the public input.
Yeah. Before you start, Lance, I'm just going to make a statement that at this point, the floor has been open for public input for well over an hour, and we haven't seen any, so we'll be closing the floor for public input. Thank you for all of the public. Okay, Lance, go ahead, and you can start.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Lance Femino. I teach math at the high school, and I've been doing some work with math curriculum, K-12, primarily working with Gina on this. So here to give you a little update, what I've been up to, let you know what my plans are moving forward, and I'll be back in the spring. So kind of a quick overview. So it's kindergarten to 12th grade math curriculum review. Desired outcomes and goals in addition to just the review. Alignment, K-12, and communication, K-12, both horizontally and vertically. Examining the accelerated math curriculum, and that would include looking at the placement test, the 6th grade accelerated curriculum with focus on pace, essential topics, possible gaps that might be created through that acceleration through the compaction of 2 grades into 1 school year. Reviewing common courses that are taught at multiple grade levels, such as algebra, which is taught in 7th grade, 8th grade, and 2 versions at the high school. And then eventually presenting some findings to the board regarding programming, curriculum, options, and flexibility for entering and exiting the accelerated math program, and some recommendations for next steps in this process. So I'd like to read this first piece verbatim and then talk about some considerations I had as I moved through this process and got started. According to the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, in order to improve learning experiences and outcomes for students, time should be spent analyzing and evaluating curriculum, systemic policies, practices, and procedures that may restrict student access to or success in mathematics. I think the important takeaway from that quote for me is experience and outcomes for students. So everything I do and everything we do in school really should come back to the students and creating opportunities for success and learning for the students. So for me, that meant kind of looking at this curriculum review, not so much as a product I had to produce that I knew exactly what I wanted to look like to start, but rather a process of improvement and engaging with it in order to find my path as I go. So I began by asking a lot of questions and doing a lot of research and trying to allow the answers I get and what I find to drive some of the process. And for me personally, I think it's important to view curriculum as part of what drives and defines what happens in schools, not necessarily exactly what's happening in schools. So the written curriculum, the taught curriculum, and the learned curriculum, looking at all those pieces. Broad strokes for some of my process. Doing a little research, looking at the current curriculum documents on file within the district, looking at test data, acceleration models, both within our schools and outside of our schools. Taking time to interview and talk to building administrators, math specialists, teachers, students. Observations and explorations in the classroom, so spending time across grade levels in classrooms to watch students learning and engaging in mathematics, and also observe some problem-solving techniques, particularly maybe students that are in a common course but have taken a different path to get there. And then some data collection and sorting, both some quantitative data and qualitative data, so looking at outcomes of students based on what math pathway they may have taken. And I'll dive into that a little bit more in a moment. Rough timeline for this process. I started by reviewing curriculum documents and looking at test data and looking at acceleration models, and then moved into meeting with administrators, math specialists, and teachers. As that continues in January and February, I hope to start spending more time observing students and looking into some problem-solving strategies that are happening with our students as they engage in mathematics, and looking at placement data. Follow up as needed after that with teachers, with administrators, with some questions that come up. And then dive more into the differences in common courses that are being taught at multiple stages, and look at some of the challenges that arise with acceleration. Put everything together and come back here. So that's kind of my rough timeline. So far, I've had that time to do the research, looking at curriculum documents and testing, and acceleration models. I've had the opportunity to meet with all the building principals, curriculum administrators, math specialists, and many teachers so far. I've reached out to all the teachers through a survey to begin with, and I'm letting them opt into a meeting with me because they're busy, and frankly, I couldn't fit in the time to meet with every single one of them. So I've been able to go to a faculty meeting, introduce myself, explain the process a little bit, and share out a survey so they can give me, everybody can have an opportunity to give some input, and then those who are interested have followed up, and I'm scheduling meetings. And I've been able to take some of the content and themes from those interviews and start putting that together. Next, I'm going to continue interviewing teachers and follow up with administrators as questions pop up. Spend time with students, including the first cohort of students who have moved through the acceleration program, who are in the high school now, and examining some problem-solving strategies there, and continue collecting data and looking at how students perform based on what pathway they took through mathematics in high school. And now, I'd love to hear if you guys have any questions or suggestions, or want to send me in a different direction.
Well, I appreciate the update, and I like the fact that we've got it all laid out as to what you're doing and how you're gathering information. I'm going to open it up to the board. Beth, do you guys want to come back, and Kate and Beth, to see if there's any questions from the board or questions from, we've got a couple students here that might have some questions.
Are you a one-person show?
I don't know if I'd go that far, but yes.
Well, I mean, there isn't a group that you're a part of?
I've been working with Gina on it, and meeting with the math specialist, so I'm gathering information from a lot of sources.
No, yeah, I heard that.
But it's mostly you, yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you very much. This is really nice to see, and we especially are appreciative of you paving the way, because it's hope that this process is one that we'll be able to utilize for other subject matters. You started out talking about asking a lot of questions. Can you elaborate a little bit on what types of, what you're asking?
Sure. So I have found that most of the time, if I open up with a question along the lines of, talk to me about math teaching, learning, and instruction in your school, we hit almost everything. But in my list of questions, I make sure I'm asking about what drives instruction in the classroom, whether it's curriculum documents, a textbook, teacher resources, a combination thereof. What opportunities there are for enrichment, remediation, how that's built into the school day, how much time is spent on math at different levels in different schools, and how that works. So diving into some of those things primarily.
Do you see an opportunity to explore the subject matter and emphasis of the curriculum? Specifically, I know that there's a state requirement now around algebra, but there's been a lot of conversations and talk, and some of it even here, about other elements perhaps being of equal or greater use to our student population, but because of prioritization, they may not. Specifically, I've heard people suggesting things around probability and statistics being a very useful tool, but it often gets missed because it's considered a higher level elective. Things related to managing budget and finance. Is there an avenue that you think you can collect any sort of impression or maybe provide a recommendation of whether or not we should be looking at making adjustments to the curriculum as far as emphasis or content?
I think that's definitely something that will be explored through this and something that's important. And I think that's a piece of that is creating the best opportunities for students to continue engaging in math while meeting requirements that are laid out by the state. So I think having options and specifically when we're looking at some of our students who have accelerated at some point, if they want to get off that path, something like a non-advanced placement probability and statistics course might be ideal and is actually a great option for a lot of students as they move into college courses, but maybe not specifically math focused. That's a common course for all students of all majors to have to be involved in their first year in college. So I think that's certainly something that should be looked into as part of this and can be an area where I make a point to.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I think it's a great start, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
So I don't want to muddy the waters because I think sometimes parents can, but I did notice that there's no opportunity to talk to parents. I'm not even really concerned about like high school students, but I do know like as you're trying to explore elementary experience in math, I think sometimes kids might seem like some way in a classroom, but parents might see stuff at home. So is there an opportunity to maybe open it up to a few select people to give you some information on that, or is that really tricky?
I think there certainly could be, and I think that's something that came up when I said, okay, we have to get all stakeholders involved, and originally that was on there, and I think some of the sticking points were logistically, how does that work, and how do we make sure that information is accurate to what's happening in the schools? And I think as I move forward and build that picture K to 12 of what's happening through conversations with administrators, teachers, and students, I could look into a way to get that input.
I mean, you certainly have enough to do, so it's probably not but it's just a thought. Not so much our high school kids can communicate what's going on for them in math, but as a mom who sat with like the 6-year-old in tears looking at times tables or whatever, like I feel like she wouldn't have been able to say that she was in tears, but or he, whichever one of my children it was. So, any other comments or questions? Yeah.
I would just say that as far as involving the school board a little bit, I would urge you to come back 2 or 3 times and bring us along and let us ask questions and sort of keep up with what you're doing rather than just at the end do a dump on us.
Point.
Sure. I can do that.
I will add that just coincidentally, I am doing an elementary math curriculum review, so Lance has graciously offered to be part of that. So in looking at new materials for both Hollis and Brookline, now that they're aligned contract years in terms of our math curriculum, he's a part of that conversation, taking a look at the materials to see how, if at all, would a particular resource impact instruction in the co-op. And what would co-op teachers need to know about the language that's used along the way, et cetera. So, very comprehensive. So I appreciate all the work he's done.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It looks excellent. So you are welcome to take off. You do not have to stay for the rest of this. But thank you very
Well, thank
much.
you. I appreciate your time, and it's been a fun experience for me, and I'm learning a lot and meeting a lot of great people. So it's been great. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lance.
Excellent. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to move to the principal's reports and athletic reports, and I'm going to open it up to Principal West to start, since I think yours comes along first.
Sure.
Thank you.
So December rocked. We had our team days and night games. It was our 5th annual one hosted by the counseling department. These were the 2 weeks before the holiday vacation. Students and staff had opportunities to do different theme days, ugly sweater being the big one. Staff had a competition, and students voted on their favorite ugly sweater. It wasn't actually an ugly sweater that took first place. It was a tree skirt, as you'll see in the picture below. Congratulations to Mrs. DeZazzo and Mrs. Chase. Some of the activities that went on were the snow people that we saw last month here in the library. The Golden Egg Hunt is a big one, and then the student versus staff volleyball game at the end of the week. I didn't type this up, but you had asked for some background information on ROC. Would you like me to share that now or at the end?
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Okay. As you'll see in our handbook, ROC is our advisory program. The goal of ROC is to support the social and emotional needs of our students by building strong, positive adult-student relationships. Research shows that the #1 factor in student success is ensuring they have positive connections at school and promoting a sense of community for all. So that's straight from our handbook. But just ROC for our students and our staff is we meet every day, Monday through Thursday. It's 14 minutes Monday through Thursday, and we have a 5-minute check-in on Friday because of our PLC time. But it's really a place for students to hopefully build connections and relationships not only with staff but with each other. And my hope is that every student in the building has at least one adult that they feel comfortable is in their corner, that they can go to just about anything. Hopefully there will be more than just one adult, but that is our goal with part of the goal of ROC. Teachers have some freedom and flexibility with what they do during ROC, but that's something that we're looking into this year is kind of refining the curriculum for ROC to have a little more fidelity for all of our students. We really treat it as our Tier 1 universal support, and in this student population, we're not focusing so much on the emotional support, but more of the relationship building, being a good citizen, being an active community member, and then we leave the Tier 2 and Tier 3, more of the emotional support to other services outside of ROC. But teachers have access to different games, different activities that really try and create an environment to allow teachers to build and strengthen that student-teacher relationship and the student-student relationship as well. Gina has helped us out in getting access to that One Trusted Adult resource, so we're looking at that. Mrs. Bushman, myself, and a couple other teachers are looking into if that's really a resource we want to build into our curriculum, and we're finding it useful. So we're sprinkling it in for the rest of the year and seeing if that's something we really want to use more often in our ROC next year.
Just a really quick question.
Of course.
ROC used to stand for something? Does it?
Reading, organization, communication, and knowledge.
Does it? Were we still?
It
kind
still
of,
stands
do we
for
still
that,
do that
but
reading
it doesn't
thing?
really have.
No,
we,
okay.
we do SSR during skills
Okay.
now
Okay.
because of all the research that shows 45 minutes of reading per week really benefits our students. But last year, in talking with a number of students, they have an appetite to change the term ROC.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that we're looking into. But there is some history with the ROC term, so it might stay, it might not. That's something that we're looking into.
Thank you.
Of course. Getting back to my board report, our gardening club has been working to improve our recycling efforts in the building. We've been recycling obviously as long as we can remember, but we've realized that our recycling bins don't really have much to show what's supposed to go in there and what's not supposed to go in there. So we've been a little more intentional over the last month or so, and we're calling it Throwaway Thursday. So our ROC groups, all ROCs are participating. They can choose 1 to 2 students on Thursday mornings to take the recycling bin, make sure all the right materials are in there, and then bring them out back to put in our recycling dumpster. Our gardening club is also starting up a small composting bin in February, mostly just veggies and fruits. And we'll be using that compost to start some early spring growing. I think in March is what our nurse Farabee is looking to start up. We are looking to get classrooms in there, connecting the curriculums. Social studies classes have gone in there just to look at different plants that Danielle's already started growing. Danielle, again, is our nurse. And we're just trying to build more classroom connections with the greenhouse out back. Big congratulations to our 8th grade student Alex Potts for winning the spelling bee. He has the opportunity to compete at the state level in Concord on February 25th. We had 32 32 students compete back in back in December here in the library. But again, Alex was the winner. Congratulations to him. Another shout out to Addison Olzeski. She took first place in the Daughters of American Revolution essay. She'll be presenting her essay to the DAR group on February 14th at the Wheeler House. And Addison will also be recognized at their end of the year ceremony. Back again this year is our Sea Perch STEM project. Portsmouth Naval Shipyard is coming to HBMS February 8th and February 9th to do the build here. And then there will be 2 days where we visit UNH and go to their pool, and the students actually get to drive their rovers. And just the personnel update, really glad to have Sam Boudreau taking over our computer science position for the remainder of the school year. Sam is coming from Hollis Upper Elementary School, where she has been a technology integration teacher for several years. We are still looking to fill our positions 8th grade science, art long-term sub, technology ed, and our school psych. And as Tim did last month, I've provided our HBMS club and advisors for this year. And then some important dates,
Thank you for that.
of course.
Are there any comments or questions on Patrick's report? Yes, Tom?
I'd just like to say that Sea Perch program looks absolutely terrific. So I don't know where it came from, how you got it, but I wish that school were only programs like that.
We are looking for volunteers, so if you're interested, please feel free to come in on the 8th and the 9th.
I highly recommend it, even if I have no I've helped as a volunteer multiple times, and this is not my lane. Obviously, we know I'm medical field. This is not anything I know anything about, but the instructions are there, and it's, keeping kids safe and learning with them. It's been actually a really good experience. So if you're, I highly recommend signing up if you can.
Well, I was in the Navy, I must know something.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
actually, even without volunteering, I do know in the past, before COVID, we used to get an invite as board members to just come in and observe one of the 2 days, and I did that prior to when my kid was not doing it because because he was like, no. So, but it was really lovely to just walk around and see what the kids were working on. So,
Yes.
but then with COVID, we kind of stopped doing
Please
that.
feel free to come in. I'll send a reminder in February just
That
to
would be really
let you guys
great.
know.
Thank you.
Of course.
I just want to extend our congratulations to Alex and Addison for their hard work and just being involved. I mean, it's not about just winning, it's the fact that they're, attempting the the Daughters of American Revolution essay or just taking on the spelling bee, but also congratulate them for their excellence in that. So, all right, great. Thanks, Patrick. No other questions for Patrick? Awesome. Moving on to Tim.
So I'll do my report first, and then I'll do Brian's athletics after, if
That
that
would be
works.
helpful, sure.
Okay.
Whatever makes you comfortable.
All right. So congratulations to all of the talented musicians that took part in our HB Guitar Night, and a special thanks to Mr. Illingworth for stepping back into the role of advisor for this. The HB Night, all these song titles or artists had to begin with the letter H or B, so there were some deep tracks, we'll say, out of the archive. So the kids were absolutely outstanding, a very talented group of musicians. Overall, the night was another success, so congratulations to all those who took part. Our SAT prep class is back up and running. We have Mrs. Plummer in mathematics and Mr. Grollo in English. And those are picking up right at the start of the second semester on January 30th. And we will be administering the school day SAT right after this course completes in late March. I want to congratulate Will Longton, who's a current senior, on his outstanding performance on the American Mathematics Competition Exam. He took this in November. And his performance qualified him to go on and take the American Invitational Mathematics examination. The last time we had a student qualify for this was 2014, so quite an honor. Will is a very talented student who is going to go on to do great things, I can promise. So congratulations to Will and all of Will's math teachers that have led him to this point, so very proud of Will. If you look very, very closely at the little picture that I included on the next section, you might see Austin in the We the People competition. So we did not take first place this year, which is for HB standards. Second place They came back, we were very proud of their performance up there, as always, having been part of their preparation and their practice panels. The kids continue to impress. The students their knowledge of the Constitution, their understanding of case law, their understanding of all the amendments is quite profound, and the job Mr. Duval does with his students in preparing them, not only for this competition, but for the AP exam, again, makes me very proud, and just want to congratulate Mr. Duval and the whole group for their performance up there in Concord in early January. We had, for the first time, just last week actually, sent a group of our musicians down to the middle school for them to perform for and also meet with students for a little Q&A session to talk a little bit about what our high school music department offers. And the presentation was very well received. And we've also discussed about the possibility of doing this in other areas as well. So continuing to strengthen the relationship, the 7-12 relationship. I wanted to touch on home-based cow block. We had talked about this over several months now, going back to last year. We offered a home-based cow block in a Monday schedule on January 9th. This is something that came from our Instructional Practices Advisory Subcommittee, this model, and we implemented it at a time in the year where it was much needed. It was going into midterms. If you look at our student population, it's only our seniors who have actually had a regular midterm experience with full weights. So bringing all of our freshmen, sophomores, and juniors up to speed as to what to expect for the week of midterms, all the nuances with the schedule, all questions about what the weight is and how it fits into their overall grade, and what happens if there's a snow day and a delay, and all those questions that you wouldn't necessarily be able to cover in an academic course, and students don't necessarily know exactly what the story is. So a means of communication for a very important topic, and overall the response was positive. I think the initial counts were they were happy that we didn't take their cab block time away, that it happened outside of the 3 designated 45-minute blocks, and that it was effective in communicating some necessary information to the students. And as was already mentioned, I want to welcome Ms. Jess Strasberg to our staff, currently filling the role of interim English teacher, and stepping in mid-year. We're very excited and very lucky to have Jess step into this role with her background in English and her experience coming from a middle school, working with that population.
There's 2 different spellings. Which one's right, do you know?
I feel like on the paper it was the first spelling.
That's what
Oh, yes, it is.
Yes.
B-U-R-G.
Okay. The first spelling. is
Yeah, the
correct.
first 2 spellings.
URG.
Yeah.
With the 2 S's and the U-R-G.
Yep.
Okay. All right, are there any other comments or questions on Tim's principal report before we get to the athletic report? Go ahead, Tom.
All right, I'm just going to mention one other thing.
Sorry.
Just hot off the press, the special education paraprofessional position has been filled.
Yay, great.
So we are fully staffed in our support, in our special education support staff.
Tim, are we able to offer financial assistance for the SAT prep class for students who might be interested, but for whom the fee is a burden?
Yes.
Is that being communicated, or can that be communicated?
Well, I believe the course is full.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a highly sought-after course, and students, I'd say it filled within a week
Okay.
of opening. If a student came with a need, we would be responsive to that need.
Okay. In the future, I think if that could be part of any initial publication, that would be really appreciated. On the home-based cav block, so the 17 minutes were acquired by shortening each of the other periods by a small amount?
Yep, so if you're familiar with the schedule, which I know you are,
Not.
oh, sorry?
You know I am not.
I know, okay, so, when we instituted the PLC on Friday, essentially Friday is about 20 minutes, it's actually 25 minutes shorter than a Monday schedule.
Okay.
So we start our Monday schedule at 7:40 and we start our Friday schedule at 8:05. So it's about 25 minutes. So when you have a 17-minute block and you've got passing time before and after, there's your 25 minutes.
I guess
So it's the same, it'd be the equivalent of a Friday meeting time for all 7 periods.
The reason for my question is, one of the discussions that's been had is that what will be the impact of, if you wanted to do it once a week, what would be the impact of taking that number of minutes out of classes over the thing? Have you been made aware of any impact that has been a hardship as a result of that, either in this context or on an ongoing basis with the Friday schedules?
No. The only response, the only input that I had about that 17-minute was that, given what was asked of teachers to cover.
In the
that-
17 minutes?
In the
you mean?
17 minutes, that they were able to do that fairly easily within 17 minutes. So just tinkering with numbers, you could do what we were asking of them on that particular day in a little bit less time, call it 15 minutes.
Okay.
So they
Thank
felt
you.
like 17 minutes was ample time. That was the question I asked. Did you have enough time to cover the things that were asked of you? And everyone said, yes, we had a couple minutes left at the end. So looking at the 17 minutes, could you pare that down a little bit? Yeah, maybe.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Are there any other questions for Tim? Just, I would like to extend our congratulations to Will, to the We the People for second place, which is great, to Mr. Duvall for all of his hard work, for Mr. Illingworth and the guitar night. And also, I just want to comment that I love the idea of the music program, kind of, with the middle school, high school recruiting
Yeah,
is
I thought that was great, too.
I think that's really a nice tradition, and I would love to see that in other areas as well. Great, so.
I was gonna say, I think that was well received because I've heard a lot of feedback on that already and it
Right,
was well received.
that's great. That's really great news. All right, anything else, anyone? All right, so
Do Brian's.
Brian's report,
Yep.
please, the athletic report, please.
So we're about halfway through the winter season, and our girls' basketball, ice hockey, and wrestling teams all sit up at the top of their respective divisions. Unified basketball, after today's victory, remains undefeated. They've got the Goffstown Grizzlies coming in next week, though, so.
No problem,
we'll have
no
to-
problem.
We'll have to watch out for those guys. The bowling, indoor track, and swimming teams all have had great starts as well. Alpine skiing did get a race in last week, and happy to report, I believe they finished second overall, if I'm not
I think the boys
mistaken.
did, I don't know about the girls.
Okay, yeah. So it was good to get out there. Obviously, the weather hasn't quite cooperated all that well with downhill ski, alpine ski team, but they did get their first race in, and they performed very well. And as far as the middle school athletics, all 3 middle school teams are off to a great start with boys and girls basketball performing first and third respectively in their divisions, currently first and fourth place in their respective divisions. And the wrestling team continues to develop under the new coach with weeks away from postseason. Several teams competed in holiday tournaments over the break, and I just want to highlight here the Hoops for Hunger, HB Athletic Department sponsored a can drive, raising $316 for the Hoops for Hunger and over 100 pounds of food. So thank you to Mr. Rupp and his work with Milford Share and Brookline Town food pantries before the holiday season. And looks like Mr. Bushman has stepped into our JV softball coach role. And you can see the postings for other vacant positions there as well.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Brian for that report. That's great. Congratulations to the teams. We're not finished with seasons yet, so full congratulations will be at a later
Yep.
date. But, and thank you to Mr. Rupp and all of them for the donations to Milford Chair. That's fantastic. All right, so those are our principal reports. Are there any questions on that athletic report, guys? Okay, so we are now at our 7:55 moment, right? So that would be a tour of the science classrooms. Are we still going to be doing that? Yes? Yes.
I think it's a valuable
Exercise,
opportunity
yeah.
to take a look at some work that,
I will. So at this point, and do we need the principals for anything else? It's just policy.
I need to make sure Patrick has the doors open.
Yeah.
So, at this point, we're gonna release obviously the students, and, as long as we can get into the middle school science classrooms, after that, the principals are welcome to leave. If you guys would just take a look, are there any policies or
I just
anything
looked
that
at-
you think you need to address? Okay, so I think we're gonna let you guys go at this point, so, and then we are going to technically not recess. Are we taking a recess to do this, or are we just gonna take a little walk?
I think we kind of have to.
Yeah, so we're gonna take a recess. Do we need to vote on a recess?
I don't think so.
No. Okay, so we're gonna take I think this will take about 10 minutes. We're gonna take a
Yeah.
10-minute recess so the board can get a quick tour of the science classrooms for future planning.
For future planning.
Okay.
Gonna see the scene of the crime?
but she will join us at some point. So Dawn can notice that we have all come back at 8:06 PM. However, Beth is still not with us, but she should be joining us momentarily. Okay, great. So at this point, I'm going to move to our discussion portion of the evening. Well, actually, because we took the tour of the science classrooms, but could not do that really in public, but we were in, whatever. Are there any questions or comments that anyone would like to make on that tour before we move on to discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say that was eye-opening. It was good to actually see it. I know we talk about it, we look at plans, we conceptualize what things could be, but it's great to see the actual physical space and just have a chance to talk about putting, 20
24 students plus a teacher.
in each one of those classrooms, and there's some real shortcomings with some of them, with most of them. So, yeah.
And certainly in terms of the furnishings and the things we're providing could be better. Any other comments or questions for Gina on this at this point? Okay, so moving on, we're going to go to discussion, the discussion section of the evening. And we are first going to get a facilities update. I mean, Mr. Corey sent us a memo, but Gina, I'm going to ask them to read that.
Do you want me to read the whole thing?
Or just like summarize it?
Sure. So I was going to sort of read word for word the part that includes the recommendation. But essentially, we've been looking at both the middle school and the high school to see what our next projects could and should be based on our capital improvement plan. We just took a tour of the middle school science wing, and that is definitely a project that is that needs to be looked at. The question is now the time, or is that something that we can delay? But we are focusing our attention on the aging infrastructure related to boilers, lighting, and the transition from oil to propane. And I will continue with some of this. So Superintendent Corey has recommended that we proceed with the lease warrant article to address the boilers at both the middle school and the high school, the control system in both buildings, the removal of underground oil tanks to be replaced with propane, and this transition to LED lighting across both buildings. So the boiler systems at the high school are original to the buildings and are reaching their end of useful life. The middle school boilers range in age from 25 years of service to 30 years of service. That, in combination with the fact that the state environmental laws have just been updated and will require us to upgrade the piping that connects the underground tanks to both the middle school and the high school boilers. This piping upgrade is mandated, and so we need to do it, and it will cost the co-op approximately $150,000 per building, or $300,000. Should this renovation project not move forward. So there's a mandatory expense of about $300,000 that would get us nothing new except for piping. By moving to propane boilers, we eliminate our underground oil tanks and the potential environmental risks, while also leveraging our buying power, as the co-op would be bidding with the Hollis School District and the town of Hollis to secure propane. This increase in bulk buying should result in a more competitive bid process. The LED lighting will enhance the learning environment as well as reduce our electrical consumption. During our process, we also reviewed a renovation to the middle school science wing. After multiple discussions and reviewing multiple options, we have decided to delay these science renovations until we have more time to review designs while determining our future curriculum needs. I envision the science wing and expansion of the high school cafeteria and the development of increased instructional space at the high school to be brought forward in the coming budget cycles, just not this one. I would also expect to provide the communities with an update of eventually expanding our discussions to include the use of solar arrays to reduce energy consumption. The chart included here shows cost estimates for the infrastructure renovations as well as the potential savings these projects will most likely generate. So looking at moving the high school to LED lighting, that costs about $558,000. The projected yearly savings with that transition would be a little over $42,000, and we would be eligible for a rebate of approximately $40,000. The high school boiler would cost $1,180,000. The projected yearly savings would be $47,670 with a rebate of about a one-time rebate of about $16,000. This includes the removal of the oil tank, furnish and install new propane tanks, furnish and install boilers for a total of $1,180,000. LED lighting at the middle school would cost roughly $423,702, with a projected yearly savings of $26,810 and a one-time rebate of about $30,000. The middle school boiler would cost $914,500 with a projected yearly savings of $30,921 and a one-time rebate of $16,000. So the middle school boiler also has three main components, which is the removal of the oil tank, to furnish and install new propane tanks, and then furnish and install the boilers for a total of $914,500. The middle school science wing, an updated price based on a little bit more specifics, is $1,209,508. And so the recommendation at this point is to delay this to a future project. But by not moving forward with the renovations to the middle school science labs, we reduce the overall cost of the lease warrant to $3,076,805. LED lighting and new boilers at both schools. This is what Superintendent Corey is recommending. So we are looking to do a little bit more refining and investigation about the science lab renovations here at the middle school. Looking at these bundling projects 1, 2, 3, and 4, the associated savings once renovations are complete would result in cost avoidance of about $147,437 on an annual basis. An annual lease payment of the $3,076,805 at a 5% interest rate over 15 years is estimated at $291,272. For a 10-year lease payment on that just over $3 million at 3.8% interest is estimated at $364,000. And then if you compare that to the cost avoidance annually of roughly just under $150,000, that would be ongoing compared to the either 10-year payments or 15-year payments.
Thank you. So at this point tonight, we can discuss, but we're not taking a vote on this until the public hearing. Is that, will we vote to approve or recommend, or?
I thought we had it all done by then.
It needs to go on the warrant,
Right. so
and we
have
would
to
need
decide.
to
Have the
have a
warrants.
public hearing on a bond or a lease.
And are we doing that on the second, the public hearing?
Budget committee one is on the second, so,
Right.
but we, I haven't seen the slide deck or anything to know where we're going, because they don't have the warrants yet either.
Well,
It's
the
not
warrant's
under,
on.
it's not listed under deliberations. so-
It isn't. It
So it
isn't.
sounds like that's happening at a later date.
Yeah, okay. But feedback, please? Anyone?
Question?
Questions, comments, feedback? That's what, feedback can be a question or a comment.
Well, I'm sorry, what action item would you put under deliberation? So if you support it, then it would appear on the warrant as Article 1, as required, because it's a,
Similar to the one that's, where it says about the consent, to see what action the board will take regarding the board putting forth a warrant to blah, blah, blah.
okay.
But we're gonna look at all the warrant articles, and that's already in the first warrant article, right? Are we?
I'm told we're looking at them, but not
We're not
taking,
voting
but
on
not
We're not
You don't- you
saying
take a
or,
position.
saying or whether or not.
Public hearing.
See, this is what has me confused, because I thought if we're looking at it, then we were going to be asked whether or not this is what we're going to now use for the hearing, but I was told no.
By me?
Yeah.
Oh.
And the fact that it's not on on the agenda, because if it was if it's not on the agenda, we can't do it. We can't,
Right.
we can't take that action because,
But don't we need a sense of the meeting so we know, I mean,
Yeah,
We-
nobody's for this.
no,
We should-
yes,
don't we need to
that
know
we
that?
can do, Tom, but we can't, I don't think we can take action to say.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I trust everybody.
Right, I think we can get a sense of the meeting, and then Well, let's get a sense of the meeting. Let's do that first and see where we're at.
Because then my understanding is then you have a hearing on it, and then we decide whether or not we're putting it on the warrant after the hearing. That, I thought, was the typical path.
So you can always, after a public hearing, make a decision to change an article, remove an article, et
Right,
cetera.
right.
But it has to be noticed. But you do not have to deliberate on it tonight in order for it to appear on the proposed warrant.
Right. Agreed.
So I think if you get a sense of the board, if there's support for bringing it forward at a bond hearing, because either it's a bond or at least either way, you need an appropriate hearing for that, then it's okay as is as Article 1.
Yeah, I think you need to leave tonight knowing whether we're going, number one, with it, number
Yes.
two, which time frame
Yep.
and stuff.
But
Yeah,
the
I mean-
time frame could always be adjusted after
Yeah.
the public hearing based on feedback from the community. But I guess just because we're doing a deliberative item on changing the percentage and potentially establishing a contingency fund, I don't think we need that same deliberative item in order to have Article 1 appear on our,
Is it Article 1?
it is.
We know what our,
It just by law has to be Article 1.
So how about we get some feedback
Yeah.
on it, get a sense of the meeting. The truth is that obviously at the public hearing, which would be the bond hearing, which we would do on the same night, February 2nd.
Holly, can we,
Right.
I meant to ask, I'm glad it came up. Online, I think there's confusion on the notice, because the notice has dates that have difference of what we're saying. Can we just clarify what they are? Because it says 2022, it says Wednesday, the 23rd. I just want to make sure. I
Where are
know.
you
Choose
looking?
the wrong year.
Where are you
I'm sorry.
looking?
Just on it's posted underneath like the co-op posts, the co-op notices for 2023. Because I went there to look for the date so I could block it on my calendar, and it has the 16th and the 23rd, 2022. So I just wanted to clarify, like, I think that it's as simple as just updating the year on there, but I just want to make sure I've got the dates right, that I'm blocking it right. Because my calendar's really very confusing right now.
So there's nothing posted, other than the filing dates, I believe.
I see
I've just
public
picked the
note,
wrong
or
date.
public hearing notice under the co-op notices.
Okay.
what's the
Is
date?
that the BudCom
It
one?
says, it could be,
Because the
maybe.
BudCom is on the 2nd. That's been on
Well,
the
it says
calendar for a long
Hollis
time.
Brookline Co-op School District, public hearing, and it's posted, it says public hearing notice 2/16/23, but when you click on it, it has 2022 dates, so I just want to make sure, because I had missed last meeting, and I wanted to add these to my calendar, and just since we're talking about when the public hearing is, if we could just throw it out
Yeah,
there.
I'd like to know the dates too.
Me too, but I thought it was the 2nd.
16th is SAU.
That's the SAU.
That's
This
why
is
I'm,
governing
that's why I
body.
think they got
So we
confused,
have
because
an
the
SAU meeting
dates.
February
Yeah.
16th.
Do you see what I'm talking
I
about?
do,
Gina?
but if you look, this is a public hearing to adopt SB2, so this
It's
is
just
just
for
the
that.
wrong,
Okay.
this is linked to the wrong document.
Okay, that's what I
So
was
this is
confused
just an
by.
old document, and I'm not sure why it's,
And got old dates and stuff, so it was, yeah.
So we need to clean that up.
Yes.
so we need to clean that up. However, the public hearing is February 2nd.
February 2nd, not the 23rd.
And
Well, we've
if
been
we,
saying all along,
and we
so,
would have a
okay.
bond hearing on the same day, if we, or a lease hearing if we are doing that, right? Yes, confirmed? Okay.
Yes, no, I'm just looking to see, last year we had public hearing, the lease public hearing, the budget public hearing on the same day.
Right.
What time is it?
6 PM, 6:30?
So
And
February
location.
2nd, we've got a meeting.
February 2nd.
February 2nd.
Joint meeting with the budget committee, and it's our public hearing.
And it'll be here at the middle school.
Correct.
And it will be here at the middle school. Okay, so, all of that being said, I would love to get a sense, because there's still an opportunity, if the board does not have the appetite for this warrant article to be on there, for us to remove it after the public hearing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to get a sense of the board so that our superintendent, who's not here, can have an understanding of where where our heads are. So I'm going to let you guys start. Who would like to go
I
first?
have questions, not
Okay,
feedback.
questions.
Gina, do you know when the projected yearly savings are shown, what that is relative to?
Like our LED lighting would be our electric.
But when, under what circumstances? Is it what it would be next year if we don't change it? Is it what we had this past year or the year before?
So we looked at our consumption for the last 2 years
Mhm.
and compared the costs of the consumption using our data from Hollis,
I don't know what that means.
because we converted everything to LED.
No, but what, when you say, so are you using, so you're forecasting what the projection will, what the usage will be
Mhm.
after the conversion?
Yes.
At what, and then what are you using for price differential? I mean, are you comparing it to what we actually paid, or are you comparing it to what you think we would pay under the two different scenarios? I'm more
The two
concerned.
different scenarios. And then looking at the boilers, we looked at what our contracted rate is
Mhm.
and what our contracted rate is for propane right now for our Hollis schools that are all propane. So that's what we've looked at
But how
consumption
about the
over.
actual consumption? Because the concern that I have is, particularly with comparing oil with propane, is that current, I don't know what it is right now because the prices have been bouncing around, but propane on a BTU level has generally been the most expensive fuel source, with natural gas being the lowest and oil being in the middle. If we're comparing it to what the cost is with our current boiler,
Oh, as opposed to a high-efficiency upgraded boiler?
as opposed to a high-efficiency oil boiler versus the projected use with a propane, I'm just wondering if you're still seeing the savings of it if you were to upgrade and stick with oil.
So my understanding is that based on the regulations that are in place that change without any notification to a group like us that needs to budget 18 months in advance, there are quite a few regulations on oil tanks that we've seen where it hits our budget and we have to act immediately, and this is one of them. And then the success we've seen with the transition from oil to propane in Hollis. And we looked into, when we engaged in the process in Hollis, we investigated so many different options. That came out as the direction we wanted to go. And so for this, that was the direction we wanted to go.
So we haven't actually done the comparison of what upgrading oil would be versus upgrading propane.
I have not. I'm not sure if EEI has to give us that
Well, I
information.
assume that's what these numbers are.
Now, I don't assume that. I assume that
Well-
it's comparison to our existing baseline.
What you're bringing up is actually one of the problems I have with where we are today, is that we need more of an explanation. The savings numbers of 150, that's significant, and no fault to you, because you've sort of been stuck in the middle here, but we need to know how those figures were derived. Is that part of our due diligence?
Absolutely.
So that's a big missing piece, and as far as I'm concerned, there are other missing pieces, but that's a big one.
What are some of the other missing pieces that you're like looking
Well,
for?
well, Tom, are you finished?
This is going to be a little bit of an
An
ongoing
interactive-
discussion, so
yeah.
go ahead.
Well, so a question is, it appears that we would want to do this article first, even though that wouldn't be my choice, Article 1, because with the $150,000 savings, we haven't taken anything out of our budget, and presumably, if Article 1 passes, and then we're going to do this installation, we're going to take at least a piece out of our budget, maybe not 150, but maybe 100. And so I would like to hear that discussion. How are you going to handle, Because right now, we've got full boat in our budget, but we're saying we're going to show $150,000 savings. So how that's going to be handled?
So I think the same is true for that as in, if this fails. So if this fails, then we're going to have to allocate $300,000 to change the pipes. So that would be a number of things that we would do later on, whether that's amend the budget on the floor to include the underground piping. Another option would be to identify that we're not doing that, and then we're not going to do some of the items that were identified as new items, like the theater upgrade, et cetera. Or another option would be to amend the school building and maintenance expendable trust. So right now, as a proposal, it's $300,000, and my understanding was that would be tied to if Article 1 failed, so that the maintenance trust would pick that up. But those would all be contingent upon what's the outcome of Article 1.
But I guess my point was, we need to deal with Article 1 as the first agenda item.
Yes.
Because if I had my druthers, I wouldn't do Article 1 at first. I'd rather get the more important stuff like a budget and the support staff, but we need to do Article 1 because that has all sorts of ramifications on the budget.
Don't we legally have to do
And we
this?
legally have to do it first.
A bond or
Yeah, it has to be listed first. I thought that was a question. I thought that the meeting could move that. I may be wrong there.
I mean,
Does it
you
have
might
to
be right. I
open
mean,
for 60 minutes?
what? What did you say?
Doesn't
I
it
don't
have
think
to-
it does because this is a majority, this
a
isn't
simple
actually a
majority.
bond vote.
Right, it's at
If
least.
it's a lease, it's a
This is a lease
Okay.
vote,
Not a bond, yeah.
which requires a majority, so I think we can just go with it.
So, and
And brings up another concern I have, and I'm trying to get an answer, and it's not a simple answer. I'm looking to get confirmation that a municipal lease will be handled in apportionment the same way a bond would be. Because
question.
our language specifically talks about bond payments and bond interest. So I started at the SAU, then I went to DRA, and now I'm talking to DOE, who people seem to agree are the right people, even the person I've asked, but he doesn't know the answer. And I'm waiting to find that out because it's kind of late to be asking this question now because we've already done it with two other items, but if the bond and municipal leases are handled differently, then that brings into a question of whether to be support for it because of the apportionment impact.
Understand?
I do believe we had a municipal lease last year, and I know your
And
question,
we
you're
had it
getting
the year before,
confirmation.
too.
We're having you're getting confirmation on that, but our understanding has been that it is long-term debt.
But nobody's checked it. No, it's not a question of whether it's long-term debt.
Gotcha.
It's a question, I mean, it definitely is categorized from a tax standpoint as the same type of payment, but whether or not, turns out the DOE tells the DRA
Right.
how to plug the numbers into into apportionment so when the bills go out to the towns. And when I ask the question, the answer is, that's a good question, I don't know the answer.
Well, did you ask Andy? Because we've got two leases.
I asked Kelly,
Or Kelly, yeah.
and Kelly said she doesn't know, she's gonna try and find out.
Okay.
So, but there are a number of people, but it's.
Well, you need
there's-
that
it's
answer
been
before
an-
you're gonna
it's-
vote on this.
It's been an
Right.
assumption,
Right.
but
That
it
does
has not
change
been
the-
verified.
It totally changes the way you would vote. I understand that. So we do need that. We need that answer.
Can I ask another question? Gina, do I understand that we have no competition with the other two districts for, they're not attempting to bond anything or lease anything, so that we've kind of got a
Correct.
free shot here?
Yes.
Is that true?
They have a teacher's contract,
There's a teacher contract in Brookline, but there's
Yeah.
no bond.
But I'd just like to say, that doesn't happen very often, and it's hard for us, the co-op, to compete with the elementary districts, because usually they're favored, and I don't have a problem with that, but it's hard for us to compete. And this year, we don't have any competition, so that's one of the reasons why I really think we should take a shot at this, because that circumstance doesn't come up very often.
And we
And it's
also
not
don't,
going to come up in the near future, given what we know already.
right, and next year we are looking at a teacher contract.
And
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think this, timing-wise, I think that's why Andy brought this to us, this.
Yes,
because
so that's
There's no negotiations going on that's gonna really bomb this whole process. I did ask Darlene, she said, yes, it can be done on the same day. It has to be posted separately as a notice.
Yes.
And it's 7 days notice.
Yeah, no, I know that. That's why I didn't think that we had a notice up, so that's why I was
Yeah.
confused.
Yeah.
So this is just an error, but.
The other,
So if we decide to go forward, if the sense of the board decides to go forward, we have to have it posted before February, 7 days before February 2nd, if we want to do it on that same night.
the other thing that this leads into, similar to the conversation about the timing, for that reason, ignoring the bond versus lease issue, even though it's a higher interest, I favor the longer period because of the lower impact annually, and the fact that one of the reasons that we're looking at lease is that they're easier to refinance than a bond is, and interest rates are already dropping, not dramatically yet, but for instance, the CPI for the last period was down to 2.9% because of changes in oil and gas prices and some other things. So there's a reasonable possibility that within the next year or two, that interest rate of 5% could easily be under 3%. So I would rather stack all the things in our favor, the timing of when we do it compared to other districts, minimizing the annual impact so that any given vote is looking at a smaller number.
So, right now, the article has an either
It's got
or,
both.
and you would,
We have to pick one, though.
we have to
Yeah.
pick one, okay. So, and we'll do that at the meeting. Right.
So I'll just piggyback on Tom on that one. I totally agree that we should keep our payment, normally I wouldn't say this, but we should keep our payment as low as we can. We also have a major bond that retiring in 3 years, which has somewhere around a $500,000 to $600,000 nut to it. And the reason I'm bringing this up is if we're going to do work at the high school and work at the middle school, and we can get rid of a bond and keep our payment low, we're going to have more of an opportunity to be successful there. So I agree, Tom.
I just want to understand, because I do feel like this kind of came out of nowhere. But I know we've been looking at the energy consumption for a while. I mean, I know that's been going on for quite a while, and I know the Energy Commission in Hollis has been promoting it and talking to the SAU a lot. I'm assuming that this came out because we had to change the pipes and because we were working on that.
We were looking at it prior to that.
Pardon me?
We've talked about it at meetings. It's just that when that information came forward to us, it became a priority to look at
Well, that's
replacing
what I'm trying to
both of
say,
them.
that
Sort
it
of
came
perfect
forward so
storm.
quickly.
Yes.
That's why I'm trying to say to the public, that's why, that's kind
The
of why.
regulation, the
The
regulation was the
regulation
catalyst
kind
to
of
make
pushed
move
it forward
Yeah.
quicker than,
It's kind of like, do we fix our car knowing that it's about to die, or do we just buy a new car?
Right, and so the regulation came out, I don't know if it was like the end of November, somewhere around there. And because we're New England, there's not a whole lot of underground work we can do right now, but it was in effect immediately. So the expectation is that it's completed in the spring with the thaw. So what we're looking for is that if we have this and it passes, then starting July 1 becomes acceptable to the state because the funds have been, committed and we're moving forward with that. Just to
Okay.
give you a little bit more context of it. We have to move forward. We have no choice with
Right, the piping.
expenditure of some funds.
Right, okay, that's right.
Tom?
So, to sort of, I think where you were
Krista?
going, Krista was going, is that, yes, Krista.
Invisible Krista.
Some people call me Krista.
Now I've lost my train of thought.
She was talking about where this came from and how it kind of came about.
Yeah, the process, I think the way we're struggling with our conversation tonight says something about the process, which I don't think has been as good as it could have been. And so I'll cite you an example. I was on the Hollis School Board when they were doing their, some of this stuff, and Tammy Fareed was the representative to all of these meetings that we haven't been a part of. And Tammy, as most of you know, is a very thorough individual, also very bright. So when I was sitting there and Tammy was speaking, I was saying to myself, she's done the due diligence, I'm okay. And we can't say that here. And I don't think that's a good spot to be in, because none of us have participated in any of this. And I think at least moving forward, because there's a bunch of stuff moving forward, there should be a school board representative, ideally, to do that due diligence for all of us. Just like what happens in negotiations and most of the other big money items that we do.
It's interesting because when we did the turf field and the potential for the STEM center, we had a facilities committee and we had members of school board and some community members on that. Maybe that's a subcommittee of the board that should be sort of permanent, so that, because the conversations are a lot about capital improvement plans, and I happened to be at a budget committee meeting where Lance went through all of the capital improvement plans and gave us a lot of information. I was there because Cindy couldn't be there, and so I think it might be a really good suggestion that we kind of start a small committee and we have a school board rep on that committee to at least meet.
It'll make the rest of
regularly.
us a lot more comfortable,
Right,
and we
in
won't
that
be
way.
struggling with the conversation that we're struggling with right now.
I think that's a good suggestion, yeah. And make that committee kind of a permanent thing, because he meets with people all the time about stuff, so, yeah.
Yep.
All right, we'll go over that with, so my sense, though, I'm not getting a lot of people saying that you're not interested in pursuing this article, or that we're going to see a massive wanting to pull this off of the warrant at the February 2nd public hearing.
I'll go the other direction. I am in favor of supporting this with two caveats. One is that we confirm that the municipal lease structure
Yep.
falls under the same apportionment formula as bond payments. And number two, with the 15-year term.
Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to put their stake out there? I agree with the 15-year term,
Yeah,
so,
I'm
yeah,
fine
I'm
with
fine
the
with that
15-year.
15-year term. How it's apportioned isn't as much of a sticking point for me, but I would prefer it to be apportioned as a bond tax. Yes. I would prefer that.
I definitely support this because we have a moment in time that's not going to repeat itself in the near future, and this is work that needs to be done. So I support it in spite of having a couple of caveats or
That's okay,
criticisms.
though. That's a great discussion.
In that vein, though, does everyone support the removal of the science wing from it this year?
Well, if they're not ready,
Well, the only reason I support doing that is because I don't feel like there's other ideas coming forward, and
I wasn't sure whether it was just, let's not spend the money yet, or that we don't know what we want. Is it some of both?
Or both.
Some of both. I mean, you can see that there's only so much you can do with the space that we have, and the space that we have isn't ideal. So, part of the conversation is, do take a bigger step back and think more broadly.
Okay, so we're not really ready to do that, it sounds like. There's still questions that need to be answered, and it would be,
Yeah.
we couldn't really sell in good conscience, it sounds like.
No, and then coupling a possible high school renovation and moving robotics back gives you more physical
So that changes the
real
equation.
estate here that
Okay,
might allow
okay,
for
then-
addition.
Okay.
Yeah, I
that
feel like
makes
that's a
sense.
better conversation to have
yeah.
and a better plan, and with a board member or a couple board members on a facilities committee could move that forward a little bit better, yeah.
One last criticism, but it's not a criticism, is again, because I was part of the elementary project, and I know how successful that's been, and I just talked with Rob Mann and Tammy about it, and they just rave about it. I really wish that there would be a conversation now. Andy skipped by it pretty quick about solar and heat pumps and whether or not they're candidates for at least this building, so that we could get an overview. Instead of just doing a piece of the energy, we really knew what the end goal was. Is that clear or is that mud?
Yeah, it's clear, and I'm happy to hear you say it, because that was my position last month, which was, we're missing a big part of the picture, which is where we really want to be, and should we be investing in that now? And I'm not 100% that I understand the reason that it was essentially discounted as not viable.
I mean, I had a conversation with Andy last week, and I was trying to figure that out. And I may be wrong here, but I think that he may put that behind the renovation, fixing the science rooms and getting the cafeteria. That's the next goal. I may be wrong there, but I know he hasn't done a lot of homework, because I asked him about the solar and the heat pumps. That's what I went to his office to speak to him about. And I got that sentence there that we'll look into it maybe sometime when we get around to it. That's what the sentence said.
So I'll just say my piece about the Halls project. When looking at all the possibilities, it was determined that Halls Primary was more suitable to utilize the air source heat pumps than Hughes. Hughes doesn't have them. They have what's proposed here, and that was based on the size and scope of the building and the layout. Halls Primary has, it's a little bit weird of a first, second, ramps and whatever. So you had better access to the exterior at a reasonable height. So the high school is definitely not suitable for
Understand that.
for that feature. The middle school, yes, you're closer to first floor, especially in the north wing, but the size is a concern. Another concern that I had heard from EEI is on a 15-year lease, those units have a useful life of 15 years. So is that the type, so it becomes a cost barrier as well, that it just doesn't make sense as.
Often, and it's ready to be replaced again.
Right, it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to do that for a building of this size, because it becomes really expensive, and you'd immediately have to replace it once it's paid off. So that came in a meeting that I had, with Andy, but with EEI, in terms of why it's just not selected for these buildings. And I think at one of the meetings, someone had mentioned that the Hollis schools had moved to them, but only one of the two, and that was based on looking at what made most sense for the size of the buildings.
But we have two tremendous facilities for solar. I mean, we have plenty of space, is what I'm saying, and we have space that faces in good directions. We have a high school sitting up on a hill there. And so it seems to me that we should at least know how that fits in, or if it doesn't fit in, and when we're going to attempt to accomplish
Agreed,
that.
and I think that would be a good conversation to involve the Energy Commission on. I know that the talks have been around a solar array and not like rooftop units like we have in Hollis. I have assumptions for why that's the case, but I don't really have a lot of reasoning to back that up. I know we have a lot of field space, but the conversation of grabbing a field and then needing another one, that's always a fun conversation to have. So I agree that I think we need to have that group work with us to kind of give us more solid recommendations based on this actual facility as opposed to, what other places are doing.
And so what I'm hearing, Tom, is your concern is that the priority is, this boiler project now, which is fine, you're good with that, but the priority that you heard from the superintendent is next would be
Well, I
science.
may have read that wrong.
Right, but you're concerned that maybe the science wing and the cafeteria and the construction is gonna take priority over looking into solar, and you'd like to see those kind of things be researched simultaneously.
Well, that's no-
I just,
was a
really what I
criticism.
want
I
most
know
is
it's
for the
criticism,
school
I'm
board to
asking a
participate in these discussions, so that if I was sitting here, I'd be
Okay.
more comfortable
I got you.
that Krista has bought into it, and I'm listening to her.
Okay.
I know, she's done the due diligence for me. That's,
Fair enough.
It all rolls into one thing, like you said, Tom, is we're being asked to buy into something when we don't have the full picture. The full picture would have included why are we going, would explain why we specifically are going with propane versus solar versus electric, versus oil. It would define the basis for the cost comparison, how these numbers were generated, what the best case, worst case. We don't know if these are very optimistic approximations or very conservative, and that's a very difficult position in which to be asked to propose and defend a decision to ask for $3 million.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I don't know that, I can actually support that warrant without those answers.
So you took assume you took some notes. Great. Great. Are there any other questions that need to be answered before we vote on this in February? Vote on our,
Yeah, we gotta tell her what's going on the warrant.
Right, is it gonna go on the warrant?
oh, I
Since
was
the
just,
board
I asked
says
that
yes,
question.
right?
I just asked that question 2 minutes ago, a couple
should we
minutes
just
ago.
poll around?
Go ahead. So would you
Yeah,
think it should be on the warrant?
I support this.
Okay.
I support it.
I support it with the 15-year.
Yeah, me too. Tom?
I already.
You
I did
answered that.
answer.
That's, yeah, okay, okay. So that's where we are, okay? But we do want some more answers.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, moving on to revenue and expense report. Linda, thank you for bearing with us tonight.
I actually have to go because the ambulance, but that's
Okay, so,
Is that the evidence for you?
looking at the bottom line, projected fund balance of $316,571. And how do we get there? Looking at expenses first. The areas where we're seeing savings right now in our budget are unfortunate events, but still showing savings. We have teacher vacancies, we have hiring savings, unpaid leaves, and savings in special ed especially. That large $550,000 savings in our budget is from savings in out-of-district services, which is not happening. And then the corresponding benefits in taxes, insurance, and retirement due to those vacancies and lower salaries. On the other side, where we're over budget right now, to note a few things, in our facilities line, the electric and oil costs are higher than expected. In our transportation line, the cost of gasoline is higher. And we're also using outside vendors because our van driving positions are both vacant right now. And the outside vendors are much more expensive. So, on the expense side, we're showing out of our $27 million budget, right now, a balance right now of not spending $739,000. On the revenue side, we're showing that we're going to be anticipating $90,000 more in revenue than we budgeted, And the one thing that is new on this report, a new line you might have noticed, is under state, that last line, NHRS reimbursement. That's a new line. That was an unexpected reimbursement from the state where it was House Bill 1221 enacted in 2022 requires the state to reimburse 7.5% of local employer contributions to New Hampshire retirement system made in fiscal year 2022. So that is a one and done deal right there, that $135,000, which we did not expect.
Linda, I'm just curious,
Yes.
since you know the bill, do you have any idea where they're raising the revenue to get, where that money's coming from?
No, I don't. No, I don't. But we'll take it. Down at the bottom then, with the estimated needs for FY '24 right now, if we were to fund the maintenance trust at $300,000, the special ed trust at $25,000, and the retained fund balance at $188,559, after reducing for all of those needs, that's where we'll come up with the projected fund balance of $316,571. I will say that just in looking at the numbers, month by month, week by week, I think the number, and Kelly would agree with me, will just get higher. I think the trend is that this is a pretty conservative guess right now.
Wow.
So, not guess, estimate, didn't sound right. There's a lot of work went into this. My Lord, forget that word. Okay, so any questions on this?
What is it that we think is going to make it rise? More revenue, less expense?
No, I think that what we're tending to see with expenses is that we encumber, we place purchase orders and we encumber money, and then for whatever reason at the school level or in special ed, the money just doesn't get spent. So, and this is just on my being here for 7 or 8 years and the trend I'm seeing. I do proactively reach out to the schools at least monthly, telling them where they're not spending their money that they have in the budget. I just sent an email to both the high school and middle school this week with those kinds of numbers, and they then reach out to their staff members saying, for example, hey, there's $5,000 in textbooks, you haven't bought them yet, let's put the order in. So we do work hard to try to proactively use the funds that we planned to use, but after that, it's pretty much out of our control.
So you think it's more, more operational versus it being staffing or things like that?
No, I think that's definitely part of it. I mean, the big savings are with the vacancies and hiring people at lower salaries. That's just something that we could not have anticipated.
So a lot of it is that we're not able to operate at the level of completeness that
Right,
we want to be. It's not,
Right.
it's not a frugality thing, it's,
Right.
exactly.
we're,
Yeah,
okay.
that's why I said it's unfortunate we have the vacancies. We're saving money because of that, but it's not a good thing. It's just, that's how it's affecting the bottom line.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Thank you very much for your time and
Welcome.
your effort
Thank
and all
you,
the work that
Linda.
you do.
You're welcome.
Linda, you don't have to stay. You're good to go. So FY '24 update, draft warrant articles. On this discussion point, we've already talked about Article 1, so I'd like to not go back to that one.
Have we?
So, but we do need to, I think we're kind of debating here whether or not we move forward with asking for a contingency fund, asking the voters to approve a contingency fund, which was not approved 2 years ago when we tried to do it. Was that when it failed?
don't
I
remember
feel like
it.
it failed on the field, when we were out on the field.
Well, but it didn't go for 5%, which is what, or 3%, which was what we originally, but
The
then
con-
they,
Which, we don't have a contingency fund anymore.
oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
So
Thinking
it
about
was,
the other
it was
one, yeah.
voted down, I believe, when we were on the field,
Yeah.
which was 2021, right? And then we didn't put one forth last year.
They also changed the law as to how to access the retained fund balance at the same time. So
We didn't put one forth.
Right, so it was because before that, you had to go to the state to request to use the funds for some sort of emergency. But now you simply hold a public hearing and and the board can take action on accessing the retained fund balance. So I think there was a thought that
We sort of, right.
that's okay.
So-
And we can go that way.
So we have three choices. We don't have to do anything. We could just get rid of the contingency fund warrant, and we could get article, and we could get rid of the retained fund increase if we wanted to, or we could choose one or the other, or we could put them both on there, I guess. So, do we want to discuss this before we deliberate on it? Do you have anything you want to say to this?
Okay, so just looking at the note under Article 8, so the article to change the retained fund balance to the 2.5, to increase it to 2.5, because right now it's at the 1%. We could go all the way up to 5, but I think in prior board discussions, we felt comfortable with, I've heard 2.5 to 3.5. So if it fails, it does not revert back to the 1%. We would need a contingency article to request that it remains at 1% if Article 8
Legal
fails.
consult on that?
Yes.
Because that really, because the way the wording is, it doesn't say anything about that this article is rescinding the current one. I would
Because
think it would have to be.
It says indefinitely until rescinded.
Right, but my
Yeah.
point is the current one is until rescinded. So if this were to say to rescind the current and replace with,
Right.
then I would think that, yes, it
We
does.
need an answer on that.
Yep. Agreed.
If we decide to put this forth, we need an answer on that. If we decide, yeah.
I would, being the rep that goes to the budget committee, it's not going to be a unanimous vote from the budget committee, but it's going to be probably 5-2, that, to put these on. So I would
Put
like.
both of them on.
Yeah, I would like to see both of them stay on until the public hearing, and then if we, get more feedback, certainly it can be discussed at that time, but I think the majority of the budget committee feels like we need these. Because the other two districts have contingencies, we don't.
And they also have.
Brookline does not.
No?
No.
But they have the higher percentage.
They have the higher percentage.
What
And when that percentage went through, 2.5,
Okay.
when that percentage went through, that's when there was like a contingent article with a contingency, and then that was pulled.
But Hollis has both.
Hollis has both.
I'm not in favor of having both. I think my preference is to have do the retained percentage if we feel we need more money. I have high confidence in our business office that they are watching the pennies and the dollars, and that if the money is available, they're going to find a way to be able to fund it. Contingencies, we don't use them much, and they draw a lot of bad attention. There's a lot of emotional angst with a contingency, especially when you don't use it.
And historically, we run a big surplus anyway, so I'm with you tonight, I guess.
The Toms Tom squared.
We're sticking together, I guess. No, I don't support both.
And you
I'm-
prefer
I'm
the
not-
retained, yeah.
I'm not sure that I support either, but I prefer 8 to 7. Article 8 to 7.
Okay, good to know. Anybody else?
So I will just kind of point out something that Andy had said about increasing it to 2.5. So that looks about 475,000. So, if a major piece of equipment were to go, we're looking at about 600,000. So the 475 plus the 125 gets you to 600,000. For right or wrong, that's the methodology for coming up with those numbers. That's all.
Oh, gets you to
Get you to 600, 475 plus the
the
125.
125. And why do we want to get to 600?
Because if we're looking at like a rooftop unit, if that goes and we need to replace it immediately, that's about 600,000.
And it still has to have a hearing.
Gina needs
So it's
to-
not
Yes.
like, it's not like people are just gonna spend the money just to spend it.
It's for
It
you.
has to be approved.
Rolos.
So I think the
think I've
counter
done
to
it.
that
Done my
is
Rolos.
that we're asking for a lot. We've got a budget that's at 6%. Then we're asking for an increase to the support staff, which I'm obviously totally behind. Then we're asking for 2 million or 3
$3
million.
million.
And at some point, and supposedly, we're all short of money, so at some point, I think we overreach.
I can see that, definitely. Anyone else? Kate, Krista?
I walked out to the bathroom, so. Go ahead, Kate, if you'd like to.
I'm actually still absorbing, taking in what people are saying.
For me, it's, I can easily see the case for not putting the contingency on there. I would rather see Article 8 go on there. I do think, on the budget the size of ours, having a 2.5% retained fund balance type thing makes a lot of sense. I mean, and it is helpful to have a little bit of money for something that could go wrong. So, it's not helpful, it's actually responsible. Like, it's the responsible thing. So, I'm for 8. I can definitely be convinced to not vote for 7, so I could see 7 coming off. Because I do think folks in the community get frustrated by that contingency fund. They don't like to see buckets of money set aside for things. They don't like that. And I get it, I mean.
Cindy, of the two, which do you think has more support on the Budget Committee?
Well, I think the percent, but I don't know that it's a consensus on the 2.5, because we had a couple of different,
What were the,
I think one was 1.5, then 2.5, and then 3 was when we did it. I didn't bring that with me tonight,
The
but,
law now allows, what, 5?
correct.
yeah, nobody
No, I'm
had
just
an
saying.
appetite to try to go
When you
for
said
5.
When you said 3, I was thinking,
Yeah.
how high does it go?
Yeah, I think Darlene tossed those out, and, like I had said before, there was 5 people that said that they would go for both, but, and to me, I guess I think it back when the Budget Committee was, fighting tooth and nail, the fact that they are the ones that kind of wanted to support this,
Yeah, I'd like to hear from them, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I want to hear why they feel that they're both important, because if it's a 5-2 vote from the Budget Committee on both, on keeping both, I could be convinced either way, basically.
I mean, I
I'm
could,
pretty-
I could agree to take it off, but again, if we're just having this discussion on what we're gonna put on and then hear the public hearing, which is what we want, right? We want the public to tell us what they, have an appetite for. I don't see any reason to take anything off of it right now.
I almost feel like, do we need to deliberate on these now, or do we wait until we hear from the public and then just decide we can decide to remove something
Oh,
the
sure.
night of,
Right.
and then do that, and then we'll take, and we may be split. I mean, we may end up, recommending, some of us recommending one or recommending the other, but I feel
That
like
would be
we don't need-
awful.
Yeah, that would be bad. So
Well,
hopefully
I
we
do
can-
hope the public comes out. It would be
Yeah, it would
nice
be
to
great.
have the public here.
So I would kind of
The chairs are comfy.
like to not deliberate on these, actually. I think we can probably do that at the meeting.
When
What
you
do you
start
think?
talking about a bond or a lease, there'll be some people here.
Well, so does the Budget Committee support the lease?
So far.
So they're supporting
But
everything.
we have a meeting next week, which might get a little bit more,
Wow.
yeah, to me, that's huge. I mean,
Jeez.
it's been like that for the last couple of years.
I leave and they
Don't
start to
jinx
spend like,
anything.
They've trusted Andy and Kelly's, recommendations, and they've come pretty close to within guidance, I mean, I think we didn't really vote on guidance this year, because he was under it, I mean, basically, so.
All right.
okay.
Okay, so we're going to deliberate on them just to make sure that they're on the warrant, and then we can decide more later. Is that good? Have we beaten that horse? Okay, so the only other thing is, after our non-public, I just want to know another sense of the board. If the board would, we have some staffing issues, specifically at the middle school. We had some discussions about that. Can't go into detail, but would the board be amenable to or would like to direct the superintendent to make a larger communication to the entire co-op related to some of the staffing concerns that we're hearing? A general one. It's up to the board. Just, we're not going to vote on this. I just kind of want to get a sense.
My sense is I would have to see the document and see what it said. I mean,
Well, I think he can communicate to the public,
yeah,
like
I
that's
know,
what we
but
ask him to
I
do.
think I would want to read it before
Right,
I could agree yes or no. I mean,
yeah. I,
I can and have envisioned wording that I would support.
but I think the problem is that he's the superintendent and he controls his communication. So if we want him to communicate something, we can direct him exactly what we want him to communicate, but do we want to get involved in approving emails from the superintendent?
no, you have a valid, I mean,
No.
you have a valid point. But I
No,
guess
I
this is,
mean-
because it's something new. We've never done this. So I think, it's just, it's hard to vote on
And
something
maybe
or be
it's not-
confident
maybe
on
it's not
something when we've
within
never
our-
seen it.
Maybe it's not within our purview to do
Right.
this. I mean,
Maybe
maybe
not.
that's what you're trying to say. Like,
Yeah.
it was Tom's suggestion to Andy. Andy took the suggestion and said, I'd like to hear from
Actually,
the
it was
rest
my
of the
suggestion to you.
To me, and then, but I sent it to him because, not for me to decide. And so sent it to him to see what he thought, and he felt like the whole board should weigh in on that.
Basically, what I asked of Holly was, should we as a board make the request that we get out in front of the communication and the likely misinformation, because as soon as we start sending things to some parents, which we do about a specific event, that gets posted. We can't communicate through social media.
Right.
We can communicate, the superintendent can communicate to the parents and give factual information about the situation and the district's response to the situation, as opposed to someone who may be well-meaning or may not, posting something and starting a gossip line about it. So I was saying, let us put facts out there and let them disseminate before the rumor mill churns too much. That's it.
A letter to parents, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And letters have gone out to parents related to the absences and vacancies.
But not as a whole, like
To the
addressing
parents in the
whole.
middle school, letters have gone out to them related to the leaving, the eighth grade science teacher, to each specific situation, right? I think. So, but,
And I believe this switched in the English teacher at the high school.
so those letters have gone out to, but not to the parents with the kids in class.
Correct.
So letters have gone out to parents of kids who are impacted by the vacancies, but not a broad letter to the entire co-op of parents related to the fact that we are seeing staffing issues. Turnover, and what the district's doing to mitigate that. So, but if you feel like you need to see it, if you feel like this is unprecedented, yes, Tom?
So I don't have enough of a frame of reference to offer an opinion on this. I can say that I trust both superintendents to make a decision like this.
Yeah, that's where I fall too.
I don't, only from the standpoint that it hasn't happened. See, that's my concern, is it hasn't happened, and I think it should. And we have been criticized and critical of insufficient communication with the public, and we're faced with a situation where that function itself, which we supported, is now to some degree gone through a staffing loss. So we gotta do it. We need to prioritize it. It's not that we don't prioritize it. And I am asking, this is my way of asking to make it a priority.
To make communication a priority?
a priority that we communicate.
Oh, I see.
This,
Right, rather than just let the people who are affected and wait for someone to ask what's going on, that we let people know, because if we don't specifically say what's going on, people's imagination go all over the place.
As do their social media posts.
Right.
And I actually would agree with that. I mean, I do see where there's some merit to sending something out to all of the parents.
Well, it has been a sort of an unprecedented amount of turnover, not just this past.
Right. If
but
it's
not
a
just
one-off
this-
type
It's
thing.
not just the past couple of months. I mean, this goes back to even last year. So we have seen it, and it is certainly in the news. And so it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for the superintendent to take a moment and, explain to families. And some of the things that are being done regularly, like the increases in the mentor program. Like, there are things that have been done by this. It really would be the role of sort of the communications and compliance person to take this, like, you're kind of dealing with a little bit of a crisis. And when you're in a crisis, you want to communicate about that. And so that would be the role of the communications and compliance person. But unfortunately, that person has resigned their position.
Now, I've
So-
never seen 5 resignations in one meeting in the middle of the school year.
Right, so I
And-
think
Yeah.
it's unprecedented.
That
So
was
I would love to see a communication go out to the co-op, but not focused on the negative, but instead focused on what we're doing what the team is doing to create a comfort level and keep staff in the building.
well,
And I
the
mean-
facts of what are happening and the solutions to the situations that are occurring, because,
I think
I
that's the
mean,
sense.
there are some unfortunate things that are happening with teachers resigning in the middle of the year, but I will honestly say, I think the administration has done an outstanding job putting it all together
Yeah.
and making it happen.
And the remaining staff have stepped up really well, too.
Absolutely.
And we've got
Yes.
to let them know that the school is not collapsing.
Right, and we appreciate, because they are covering for each other, and that's very much appreciated, so that message could go out to the public and to the staff as well, and, yeah, so, and I trust the superintendent and the assistant superintendent to craft the right message. I totally do trust them to do that, but I do think that it's time to put a message out, because Tom's right, like 5, that's a lot. Was it 5? It felt like it went on forever, so, yeah.
Okay, I agree.
And we did not support any of them.
Yes, and we
So
voted
that's
against all of them.
going to have an effect.
Yes, I hope.
We're
Okay,
pissed.
so,
Just make sure we get a copy of the letter, because like, if we don't have a student in, which some of us don't, we
Right.
never see any communication that goes, I haven't seen anything that went
no,
out to the
you
middle
get
school.
the, don't you
I
get
mean-
the,
I mean,
don't you get
these-
the middle school? But those,
No.
but those,
Yeah.
but even as a
if you had
board,
a student,
but
yeah.
only if you had a student in the classroom.
Yeah.
You wouldn't you wouldn't have gotten it unless you had a student in the classroom, so. But yes, if it's a broad co-op, we should get a
Yep.
copy of that. And we are also I assume you're all getting the weekly updates from the principals from both schools.
High school and middle school report.
Yeah.
You're getting
Yes,
those
I do.
reports, right? You're not on your email?
I'm not getting a lot of stuff, but Gina fixed me up.
Okay, so we're gonna get you all fixed up. Okay, so
Keep Tom Enright in the dark.
okay,
It's all part of our strategy.
okay. It is 9:15. Let's move on to the deliberative items, please. We have to get through the second reading. I need a motion to accept the second reading of policy JLCB, immunization of students.
So moved.
Moved by Tom, second by Kate. Does anybody, can you speak to it? I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
don't have the.
So the immunization of students you see here for second reading with absolutely no changes whatsoever to the last month. If you recall, the change was a change in the law that used to require
Notarized. form.
notarized form, and now it does not. So we did look into how the form has changed, and the form has not changed at all. It just does not require a notarization at this point.
Okay, should we make this second, waive third, and adopt?
No.
Okay, so let's just,
No,
is there a reason why?
yeah. I went and looked at the form that's referenced there,
Okay.
and we do specify some of the things that are in the form, so it's not a question of us just saying, follow RSA. And something that's interesting in the form is that it has the statement that if someone submits a form asking for exemption under a religious exemption, it says, in the event of an outbreak of vaccine preventable disease for which immunization is required, an exempt student shall be excluded from school attendance. And I would like to see that information in the policies so that people understand that if they claim this exemption and there is an outbreak, that the school has the requirement, not just the ability, but the requirement to exclude those students.
I think that's a very valid point, and we will bring that right back to policy. Thank you. I'm gonna, let's not make me responsible for that.
I'm writing it down.
All those in
We have
favor
a
of second
co-
read.
a
Is there any
school
other
board
comments on
meeting.
this one? All right, all those in favor of second
Yeah,
read?
and then.
And then-
I've got four.
All those
All
in
those in
favor?
favor of second read? I've got 6-0. Stop talking. Okay. And then, you know,
Did you,
I
did you
did,
note,
I'm giving it to Gina.
did you note when Beth left for Dawn?
I did.
Did
I
you note it?
yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I spoke to her briefly. Okay, and then I need a motion to accept the third reading and adopt policy GEA, extracurricular and co-curricular advisors and athletic coaches.
So moved.
Moved by Tom,
Second.
second by Cindy. There were no changes again to
No
this?
changes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
No changes to this. So, are there any questions on that? Okay. All those in favor?
Are we adopting?
I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Yes.
third and
Third,
adopt
I
is
did,
the
I
motion,
said
yeah.
third and adopt.
To-
Didn't I say that?
Yes, you did.
Okay, all those in favor? 6-0. Okay, are we doing these
Two
deli-
sit together anymore, they're not.
I know, they're chit-chatting. Be in the cheap seats. Okay, are we doing these two deliberative items? Okay, so I need a motion to put forth, we decided that. I need a motion to put forth the warrant article to see if the school district will vote to authorize indefinitely until rescinded. Wait a second, did I skip them? Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, that's right. In year-end unassigned general funds in an amount not to exceed in any fiscal year 2.5% of the current fiscal year's net assessment in accordance with RSA 198:4-B2. Does anyone make that motion, please?
So moved.
By Cindy, second by Tom Solon. We've discussed this already. Is there any further discussion?
I just would like to reiterate that we'd like to get clarification about the issue of if it fails, because that is a concern to me if it requires that, if it fails, then we have nothing.
Right, we lose our 1%. Yeah, I would like that answer too. I'd like clarification on that, because that does worry me a little bit. But in terms of putting it on the warrant and discussing it at the public hearing, I'm good for that. So all those in favor? 6-0. And then I need a motion to put forth a warrant article to establish a contingency fund for the current year for unanticipated expenses that may arise, and further to raise and appropriate a sum of up to $125,000 to go into the fund, the sum to come from year-end unassigned fund balance. I need a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Cindy. I need a second.
Got it.
Tom? Okay, we've discussed this. All those in favor of putting it on the warrant, putting it forth for the public hearing? The warrant, thank you. Okay, 5 opposed or abstention?
Opposed.
Opposition, 5-1. Okay. Okay, so just a quick report out by the process observer, then we're going to go into non-public.
We did well. It was very topsy-turvy. We were in non-public for longer than I'm sure that we anticipated, but we're only 30 minutes off, so.
Okay, that sounds great. All
Actually,
right.
we're only 10 minutes off.
Okay, and at this point, I need a motion that the board by roll call go into non-public.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like,
We-
it's C.
We blew all
Okay.
our time in
Go
the
into
first
non-public session
non-public.
pursuant to RSA 91-A,
Nobody say
colon 3,
anything.
part 2, section C, reputation. I need a roll call vote. So I need a motion first.
So moved.
Moved by Tom,
Second.
second by Cindy. Roll call.
Tom, I.
Krista, aye.
Cindy, I.
Holly, aye.
Tom, I.
Kate, aye.
So we are now in non-public at 9:21, and for the public to know, we will be moving from non-public back into public, and we'll make a motion to adjourn after that. So I don't think we need any more services.
Are we
from you.
relocating?
We are relocating, yes. I think it's safer.
Thank
so
you,
that we can-
Linda.
Back to
Thank
the
you,
norm room.
Gina.
Anytime.